the petitioner, so that item would be not considered tonight, coming back at a later time. So subject to that change, should approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Not. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item 4, any items not on the agenda to be discussed at this time? Is there anyone in the audience who would have any item not on the agenda you'd like to discuss? Okay, if not, we'll move on to item 5, approval of the minutes from May 20th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission for Monday, May 20th, 1999 is written.
Second.
2019, thank you.
Any discussion, comments, questions? Not, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
No, opposed?
Kristen and I have to abstain.
Yes, we were gone.
Okay. Okay, item 6 is not to be considered now. So item 7, motion to recommend council approve a comprehensive plan amendment for the revision of future land use for still one low density to mixed use. Somebody to speak to that?
Again, I don't know if the applicant is here.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you want to speak to that first or.
Yeah. Stand here to it.
Whatever is comfortable for you.
Yeah, so basically,
You can just state your name for the record.
Jeremy Lindley.
Okay, thank you.
So with Lindley Enterprises, the owner. And just, I guess, per city, just needing to actually switch that to a commercial use. Obviously, it's been the bait shop for, I think, 42 years, so I've been operating as such. But since the business is closed and we are selling property, it's time to kind of get up some of the zoning on it. So we have put an application in for that, since most people looking to buy the property do like commercial use. I don't know if you guys want to hear kind of some of the ideas of what people have had with it, or it's just a matter of.
You can sure share. I guess, yeah.
Most
Whatever you want to on that.
most want to continue. Most interest has been to reopen the bait shop, obviously under a different name, but make it a bait shop. We have had some people, the very first people that were interested, we're going to open a pet grooming business. Other than that, one gentleman just kind of wanted to make the house an Airbnb, have a bait shop, and maybe a future use, make a restaurant attached to it. So got full fishing experience. One buyer currently that has interest would like to finish the second level of commercial space into more housing rental. So that was an idea they had, but then the main level of the bait shop. So,
Okay.
nothing too dramatic. We have not had it sold. At the time we made application, we did have agreement, subject to sale agreement, and then did have another buyer that submitted an offer that knocked them out, and then that person backed out. So. Anybody wants to buy the property?
Okay. Sale, okay.
So yeah, I don't know if you have any other questions, I guess, for me. I did see that there was a recommendation to make a site plan for the property. I guess I'd like to get a little more info on that, what that would really require from us. I mean, I understand the basic idea of it, albeit building quite a while operating the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know what will be learned from.
Well, the site, I mean, part of it is that, my understanding at least, is that the building, depending on when it is occupied, the fact that it's grandfathered in does expire if it's vacant for a period of time. So that's one of the pieces. The other thing is there is no site plan on record that anybody could find for that, probably dates. That goes back a long ways. And so depending on the use, we want the opportunity to evaluate the parking that's there versus what the use is that's coming in. There is some parking out front. And there is a building back behind the garage. I don't know if that's used for, I mean, again, it depends on how they're using it. So again, it just gives us the ability to to see how compatible it can be based on the use. I mean, some uses require, like restaurants require a lot more parking than would a bait shop. So again, it gives us the opportunity to review that, also to get things into compliance, like there's a lot of signs that are not in compliance with the sign. So wouldn't necessarily, instigate the architectural design standards per se, but at least let's look at parking and signage whenever an actual use is coming forward. We can see how many square feet for that use and how that fits.
So that would be something, as the current owner, I would need to finish to get through the process, or?
It's written both ways. I've seen where some buyers will actually have an option until the site plan's approved, so they know that is going to work. So it's going to be dependent upon exactly what their buyer is doing, though. So I mean, it certainly could be on the buyer to take it through as well. Either way. The other thing, I guess, to make, as you can probably tell from the agenda, the future land use is designated as low-density residential for this parcel. So prior to any rezoning, you'd need to doing a comprehensive plan amendment that would change the land use to a mixed use, which fits pretty well with the C1, and the C1 is, adjacent, and that also allows residential and commercial on the same property. So those two are pretty compatible with what's kind of been going on there, or what has been going on there, I guess. I apologize, my memo does on item number 1 says change the future use from civic to civic commercial. I must have not caught that from when I was changing over. It should be from low density residential to mixed use.
Yep.
So typo on page 2.
Kathleen, on item number 3 of your review comments. Excuse me, you talked about the possibility of a number of commercial uses may not be suitable for the site.
Mm-hmm.
And then you name some which don't seem to be, unreasonable at all.
Yeah, part of it's the parking. But again, if you have the site plan in there, it gives you a lot more flexibility. So you may not need to have the further use restrictions. It's kind of how, if you don't require the site plan, then you may want to consider restricting use based on the limited parking that they have available. But if you have a site plan, it gives you a chance to. So then it's just, I guess it's up to you if you want to restrict any uses. Obviously, you have a lot of commercial uses around there with come and go on one side and the post office on the other. And the way it's situated right now, that bed and breakfast or house, whichever it is, kind of buffers, is there to buffer now. If somebody did take that down, decide to reconstruct a whole new facility and take the house down, then you could have commercial use abutting the existing residential. So, I mean, if the lot were completely redeveloped. So.
And if we so decide, if we require a site plan or pass on,
Yeah, I mean, what that would do is that would be in the rezoning ordinance. It would be written into that ordinance so that it's rezoning based on that requirement. I mean, it's in some ways like a restriction. Same as if you said, well, it could be all commercial uses except for drive-in restaurants or whatever.
so part of our recommendation could be to require a site plan before it goes to city council.
Or require a site plan before a certificate of occupancy is issued for any new use. And I guess that would not necessarily count a bait shop if it came in the window where a bait shop was still grandfathered. But it more clarifies the other uses, just because the bait shop was grandfathered and the other uses were not, based on its current.
Do you think your recommendation number 2 covers that?
In terms of the uses,
as far as the site plan.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we would write it into the
Okay.
rezone. It would be in the ordinance itself. Yeah, the ordinance pretty much says what the old zoning was, what the new zoning was, what the legal description of the property is. So it would just be written right into that, so it's a requirement.
And you had mentioned the possibility of, what if they would deconstruct what's there and start from scratch? Would you need a buffer then at that point?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, let's see. Let me see
would we require a buffer
Yeah,
at that point?
yeah, you could. Yeah, I can tell you what it would be in just a second. So then it would be an R1 to a C1 buffer, so it'd be a type B buffer, so 20 foot. I think, or maybe 30. Type B is 20 foot. So yeah, they could. That would So if the site was redeveloped, you'd have that buffer.
Right now, really, the house is the buffer.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess one question I would have then, so if that restriction is, so if it's all approved with that exception of the restriction, what sort of time frame would that be then for the full zoning to finish?
What would be passing it subject to that?
Yeah, and what would happen is at the next city council meeting, which would be a week from Monday, they would set the date of the public hearing for a rezoning. And then that takes then 3 subsequent council meetings to pass. They have to pass 3 readings of the sort.
So we could do the site plan as is, even with not any idea of what future use is?
Well, the site plan wouldn't be a restriction of the rezoning. It would just be prior to any certificate of occupancy for a new use.
Okay.
So you don't have to do it now. It would just be when you have an actual user, they know what they want to do with the building, then you would come in for a site plan and get the site plan approved before either you get a building permit for any remodeling or any occupancy.
Yeah, because obviously my biggest concern is if somebody writes me off today and I accept it, we close it in 45 days, I'll close it in 45 days. Have them
Yeah,
labor my sale. So that's what.
yeah, I'd have to check and see what, it would probably be the end of, let's see, end of
And
July.
obviously I can negotiate, I just need to know how to
It's first of all.
tell a prospective buyer, you know, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna,
we gotta get
I
counted.
made application for rezone, not gonna make the sale contingent on that process finished, that could delay
Okay, yeah.
into August or.
August 12th would be when would be the council meeting for the 3rd reading. So if everything goes through and all the readings pass, August 12th would be, so anytime August 13th and beyond, assuming it does pass.
Can I clarify one thing? The exception to having to have a site plan would be the grandfather clause, that if it, to be a bait shop still,
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you,
wouldn't need
right.
a site.
Well, yeah, unless it's provided it's within, and I believe it's a 1-year window. So if a bait shop went in, I want to say it was mid-December when.
Right.
So if a bait shop comes in before mid-December, it's still grandfathered in.
Any other questions? Okay. Comments?
Good to get this cleaned up.
Yes, absolutely. If no other questions, do we have a motion?
Just curious if anybody from the audience has any comments on this one?
Do you have any audience questions, input? Okay.
I guess for starters, would need to amend the comprehensive plan as a first step. So I would be happy to make a motion to recommend to council approving a comprehensive plan amendment for the revision of future use Field 1 Walnut from low density to mixed use.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll on that.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett. Yes. Olfest,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Okay, the second part then be to consider a motion to recommend council approval rezoning from R2 to C.
Make a motion to recommend to council approving the rezoning of 301 Walnut from R2 to C1, subject to city engineers' comments dated June 7th, 2019, noting a correction on item 1 of the recommendation where civic commercial should load as a density residential mixed use.
Second.
Any discussion? Audience comments?
Yes.
Sires, Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett. Yes. Olfest,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 9. Listen to recommend council approve annexation for farms. somebody here to talk to petitioner to us about the annexation.
Not seeing. Jared Ruckel would be the petitioner, and Shai Hattery is their engineer. Oh, right, right over you. Sorry.
Yeah, so Jared Ruckel, MJR Developments, 1425 Northwest Hunt Drive. And we are here to, working with the Bergeron family on the parcel to the east of Whitetail Ridge. There's about 100 acres there, currently owned by the Bergeron family. And we are aiming to annex it into the city and zone it R1 residential.
Are there any questions from the?
I was just happy to see the staff's write-up was pretty detailed regarding communication of kind of how parks will be handled and how Whitetail Park. Yeah, so appreciate you documenting that.
Yeah, I mean, it does just kind of clarity. This project that's being annexed would include the extension of Whitetail Parkway. We've given some preliminary alignments to the developer on that. Also, this, just to make it clear too, this property falls within the service area for the TCI Plat 6 lift station, so it is able to be sewered through the same sanitary sewer line that's serving Whitetail Ridge. So this does kind of represent the end of what that area would serve, or what that lift station would serve. So.
And the water is going in already out there.
It's going in on Hug. I mean, we'll need to consider getting it in, extending it north on 72nd Street as well. And that was a part of a 12-inch water main loop. So we need to take a look at where that would run and that kind of thing as the plat moves forward.
And the current sanitary service that's being installed at Big Creek Valley will come up that drive where so that's 10 inches size for that as well.
Right. Yeah, and the depth, they did look at the depth to make sure the depth would work too when that went in.
Yep.
Well, I was happy to see there were no review comments. It happens once every week here. I don't think this is legal.
I guess one other just comment that I had on this would be tied to the rezone petition. I did talk to all the neighbors, and I think we got signatures from everybody except for was good here today, but just didn't connect with him. I didn't talk to him about it. He didn't have any concerns that he voiced to me anyway. So
Nice extension of development out in that area. Are there any questions, petitioner?
Do you have a concept plan?
we're working on some other concept plans, but with the parkway alignment, we talked and we decided we weren't quite ready to share that yet. There's still quite a bit of work to do to try and finalize how we want to orient that and line it coming across it. So continue to work through the city and hopefully we'll have something for next month.
So just to be clear, you have talked to the rest of the folks, because on our documents, we have 3 signatures for the property owners.
The ones that we got today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have those.
Okay, so there's,
We did get additional signatures today.
okay.
Yep.
Are there any audience comments?
Yeah, I was like Maxwell, I was never notified, and I live on Hug Drive, got this process.
Nor did we sign. Nor were we asked to sign.
Yeah, the requirement is 250 foot
Right, we have property right across the way.
within city. This is the
No, it's not within city limits.
You as a farmer.
So you don't require our signatures simply because we're county residents. Is that correct?
That's the city question, but not for me.
Yeah, the city code is just residents within the city, 250 feet.
As far as being in the county, if you're right across the street, you don't get any.
It's presently in
just state your name for the record.
My name's Greg Young,
Okay, thank you.
and neighbors line is Curry's Aid, we've never had any notice about this at all. As far as the Miller property, being annexed or requesting zoning variances or urban property.
You're in that 250-foot radius
Right.
as well. What's your folks' name?
Well, it's Passover.
Teresa.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah, and just to make sure everyone's clear, the notice requirement isn't for annexation, it's for the, no, there is no notice requirement for annexation.
And the zoning requirement is parcels of the city. That would,
We need to go to the supervisor then, is that the bottom?
Well, if you have thoughts, you're here, you can, notice requirements notwithstanding, if you have comments on for or against.
Well, I'm against the single family, I just didn't see the state zoning up there.
Well, to be clear, the zoning would be, they've submitted an annexation petition, which means they would come into the city. Therefore, the zoning districts would follow city zoning districts. The city doesn't have an estate residential. The closest that they would have is the R1, which is single family.
Which changes, okay, I see.
R1, the definitions are different.
Then what type of homes would be built on this R?
That would be Jared, but it's single family homes. It doesn't allow multifamily or townhomes or even buy attached.
Until they make a zoning.
Right, what assurance do we have? Change.
Well, I guess I can't say that I
Houses
couldn't
that go
request
around
it.
cell towers, I don't see that staying R1, my concern.
and
Do
right,
you have plans to change that into an R3?
No.
Or a PUD, or a three-story, cluster development?
now, right now, we're basically just looking at the south half of the development.
I'm talking
Well,
about.
South-
Right now, what assurance do we have that's not gonna change?
Right, anytime it changes, actually, it has to come back through zoning commission. So what we have for concepts right now, like I said, I didn't bring anything to share just because we don't have finalized the parkway, but south of the creek that goes through there, along Hug Drive, those would basically be lots access to along Hug Drive. Right now, we're showing like 8 acre-and-a-half lots, so it would kind of match up the what you would call estate. So I think that would be similar.
But on the north half of the ditch, so to speak.
The north half would be just residential, that'd be like half acre lots probably.
Probably. And I didn't sign anything, and I'm one of the neighbors, that's what I wanted these people to know too. I don't know where you came up with some of the, whatever, that's enough said.
Sir, you said, it was just you're gonna put some houses on the south side of that creek. What is your plan with that creek? That
The
ravine?
creek, the city master plan is for that to become a park. So the area around the creek on both sides would all be a city park.
How are you gonna ensure there isn't runoff and garbage going around like we've seen some of these other?
That's
Well, we'll review the stormwater management plan as part of the platting. So, and again, it's not far enough along that we have that, but they will need to comply with city codes and the subdivision ordinance with respect to that, which is similar to what they did what's out there now. They've got 2 detention ponds on the north side of Hug Drive for the 7 or 8 homes that are there.
Right.
So I would anticipate it's going to be something similar to that. In terms of construction debris, is that what you're talking about? I mean, that's kind of a thing for the city to manage with building permits.
And a DNR split permit covers that as well.
Yeah.
Expect for that as well.
I guess I want to clarify how much of that wooded area you're going to be leaving.
So that's again, further down design wise, and we have to work with the city to come up with that. So we've shared some concepts back and forth, and like I said, I hope to have a concept to present at this meeting.
Will we have any input on that?
Come to the meeting, yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, the plating here, I mean, we'd have a plat to review, so you could come to that and provide input.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I just see a lot of runoff coming through our property. And especially if it's funneled down there, what it looks like it could be. It just has a pond there, there's a septic backside of the dam to it. Well,
Yeah, that was my concern, mostly is where's the fire gonna,
yeah, it's gonna go straight down onto the middle property.
Are there other comments or concerns? Thanks for the input to that. Like I say, you'll have opportunities again to look at the final plat before it's
If we're
approved.
notified.
It is online too, the city has, they publish the PDF and it's got them all, it'll have the map and everything online as well. So that will be posted again.
So you can sign up to receive it's on Polk City website is the newsletter. But if you sign up to receive it, you'll receive an email anytime there's an update to the website, including when the P&Z agenda is uploaded, council.
Talking clarification, I find that out myself.
well, and half the time.
Well, that's how you can be
half
notified.
the time the agenda isn't out there on the website. Quick agenda, there's nothing
It's posted by the Friday before the meeting.
Friday before.
Okay. Your comments from the commission? Questions? All right, no other questions. Do we have a motion to consider this annexation?
I'll make a motion to recommend the council approval of the annexation of the Burke Farm, subject to city engineer's comments dated June 6, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? Further discussion? Not, call roll.
Vogel,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett,
Yes.
Olpest,
Yes.
Bowersox.
Yes.
Okay, then item 10 would be the motion to rezone it from A1 to R1. Any further comment on that? You want to make?
Just any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Whoever needs to come.
Just to be clear, it is the future land use plan and your comprehensive plan does call for this to be low density residential, so there's no change anything from a comprehensive standpoint.
Okay. All right, any further questions from the audience on that item? Commission?
I'll make a motion to recommend to council approval of the rezoning of the Bergen Farms from A1 to R1, subject to city engineer's comments dated June 6, 2019.
Second.
Further discussion?
I would just like to say, if possible, that share your plans with those here that are concerned. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. No problem. Stop by anytime.
Okay, I'll vote.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett,
Yes.
Olpest.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, number 11. Consider motion to recommend council approval annexation for the Miller property.
Josh Trickson, Civil Design Advantage, 3405 Southeast Crossroads Drive, Grimes, Iowa. I guess I'm not representing the actual owners. They're handling the annexation, but we did prepare the exhibits for Kathleen as requested. So I'm happy to share any information. Ultimately, the site consists of 33 acres located at the southwest corner of Hug Drive and 3rd Street. Currently, it's undeveloped. I believe there's a couple houses located on it, and the rest is farm field. Again, it's located outside the city limits, but is kind of filling in that infill section of Hug and 3rd Street there. So that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the annexation, just in a generality, but I can't really speak on behalf of that.
questions on that?
Yeah, I think any of my questions or comments are more related to the concept as opposed to the annexation or the zoning per se.
Kevin, any comments?
In terms of the annexation, no, I mean, this area is obviously in the growth area. The sanitary sewers in Wolf Creek Townhomes designed to extend to this area. The water mains will extend from Wolf Creek and tie in there. We're gonna need to look at how we're gonna loop a 12-inch water main for the comprehensive plan, figure out the best way to accomplish that as part of this development. The other thing to be aware of is that this property kind of represents the northern edge of limit of what the city's able to serve from the Wolf Creek area. So we'll need, at some point, as the city continues to grow farther north, need to look at a trunk sewer that, for the comp plan, kind of runs up the west side of 3rd Street to serve what's known as the north service area. So at some point, with some planning before the city can take the next step, that would need to be planned.
Okay. Any audience comments?
My question has to do with, you said you don't represent the Miller family. My understanding is that property was titled no.
Correct.
So who do you represent in terms of annexation?
The annexation was bought, by the property. Miller residents,
The people buying Miller property, owners themselves.
the Millers themselves, correct?
Yeah.
They submitted the
The
application.
annexation petition.
We only
is from-
prepared for that, just to help with.
Still, I'd like to know why we were never notified on any of this.
Again, there is no notification requirement on annexation.
Right. Even though we're in the county still, and they are.
But, and again, the reverse is true of the county. If there's a rezoning in the county, they don't notify city people either.
When you ask the question, why don't you let somebody answer so we can have a meaningful conversation?
Yeah, again, there is no notification requirement on annexation. Nobody's notified whether you're a resident in the city or outside the city on an annexation request.
It would seem prudent and reasonable that you would notify us. I mean, even if it's not a requirement.
Well, it's an annexation request, so it's a private property owner's desire to annex to the city.
Why the request, I suppose, because suppose they let them do things the county won't.
Typically, it's to provide public utilities, water and sewer, that the county does provide.
Is there any tax incentives for being involved in this as far as extensions to the developers?
What benefit?
There is no financial.
Tax abatement. Like that.
There's nothing been discussed, proposed. This is strictly an annexation request.
That's something we've never done as a city for residential.
What about the hookups, the water?
Well, the developer would need to extend, he'll pay for the extension of those. So.
All right, but the owners, if they receive any sort of. Will the neighbors that are on the other side of the street, will it be possible for them to tap into these resources?
Well, there's city services, so you'd have to be annexed into the city to have access to it.
Yes, sir.
You have some questions. Bill Curry, 12365 Northwest Polk Drive. Where does this go from here? I'm sorry. Office. Where does this, is this like a first reading or a third reading? Because we're neighbors of Greg, we didn't like either. So.
So the planning and zoning, sorry if I'm.
No, it's
I'm on the city council, so the planning and zoning acts as a recommending body to review, so it's not even stage one. It's prior to that. This is the first review. I think they answered the question, which to me seems somewhat reasonable. As a municipal body, we control the municipal area. And I get your frustration that being right next to that, there's not a requirement to notify, but I think they answered that. But again, you haven't missed anything. Nothing's happened. And this is the first review through the Planning and Zoning Commission to either recommend or not to recommend. If it going down the move ahead path, if go to city council and in the case of rezoning requires 3 readings for that zoning change, then there will be site plans, construction drawings, and a few other steps before anything happens.
Is it okay to have the annexation and the rezoning at the same time? Is that legal?
Yeah, the annexation only requires 1 reading. So the annexation will be presented, it'll be
That's
either
still at the council.
at the council level and be approved or not approved. The rezoning is 3 readings, so the annexation would be effective before the rezoning takes effect.
Okay, official publication with the council. You guys didn't have to do that, publish your agenda or.
Right, that's only
Published the agenda.
What's that?
They did publish the agenda.
This today? The
Correct.
official,
Yeah, all city meetings are published.
is that, the register and then what else?
It's on our website
Yeah, I don't, that's official publication.
for the agenda.
Well, that is. There are a lot of people from the Wolf Creek area on this petition, but there are only 2 signatories. And one of them signed it twice. I'm not sure what the Wolf Creek Association is or who this other LLC is, but they seem to make up the majority of the property. And I'm just curious what that constitutes, who went around.
The LLC, I guess I'm not looking at it right now, but I would think that the LLC is actually Iowa Asset Management who owns, they are in control of the home, property that's owned by the homeowners association. So the common areas, the individual townhome owners own kind of the postage stamp lots, if you will, that the town, each individual townhome sits on. The homeowners association owns kind of all the common and the common area of the lawns between,
That's
so.
the parts they take care of, snow removal.
Right.
So there's a percentage requirement that they have to move it ahead,
Right.
which if they meet the minimum, I think that comes into the equation on move ahead as Jared did. He went over and above that to get literally all the required signatures, maybe not the, preferred by this group, but what he needed to do was well below what he did in this case. And as past precedent, to use that as part of, did you get the minimum approval or did you go past that? So nobody went around, I think you trailed off there toward the end, but nobody went around anything to move this ahead.
Well,
So this,
yes, I'm curious to know how that's. But because we're in the same boat here, we're across the road, we're in the county.
I understand that, and we can talk about, okay, but if there's a substantive, addition you'd like to make to what's happening rather than procedural questions, that's more of what we like to get is the shape, how it develops now.
Well, it's substantive.
What would you like to see done differently than what they're doing?
Like to see nothing done.
Okay.
I guess that's substantive. And then there's a marsh area in the property somewhere. Is that being bowled over like you guys did for the one over by Mike Stewart's place? I don't know if CDA was involved or not, but if you're involved here, is there going to be a, wildlife area kept as is? I don't even know if it's official, but.
First of all, I can't really speak on anything until we get to the agenda items that I'm allowed to speak on, because I'm not really representing the millers and the annexation still up in front. So when we get to rezoning or concept, I can try to elaborate, but I guess let's just take it one step at a time.
Okay, that's all.
Any other comments? Questions? Commission, questions, comments? If not, you have a motion, consider this.
I'll make a motion to recommend to council approval of the annexation for the Miller property, subject to city engineer's comments dated June 6th, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Vogel,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett,
Yes.
Olfest,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to the rezoning, or I'm sorry, the comprehensive plan revision from medium density residential to low density residential.
So just for the record, Josh Trixie again, Civil Design Vantage, 3405 Southeast Crossroads Drive. On behalf of Orange Development, we're requesting the approval, recommendation of approval for the comprehensive amendment from medium density to single family residential or low density residential. Ultimately, we feel like this would be kind of a buffer between some of the areas to the north. And also we met with city staff. They kind of felt like same story, looking for more of that low density or lower density residential in lieu of the medium density residential that was done for Wolf Creek. Again, I guess we could get into the concept, but we could also talk about that with rezoning. I guess it's up to you guys on where you want to bring that up. I do have the concept, and please note that we're just starting our topographic survey right now, so that concept might be revised based off what we find out.
Yeah, I mean, just with respect to the comprehensive plan amendment, I mean, I guess to make it clear to everybody, they're actually looking for less density than what would currently be allowed by Polk City's comprehensive plan. Polk City's comprehensive plan would allow townhomes similar to Wolf Creek townhomes to be constructed in this area, and they're asking actually for a reduction so back it off to more like a single family. So I guess I just wanted to point that out since you hadn't received the notification that it's less density that they're proposing.
My concern is looking at your future use map and in terms of property, how you're planning to use it. How do you plan to move forward? How aggressively if the owners aren't willing to sell property?
Let's stay on the subject here.
Yeah, well, my name's Bruce Gates, I'm with Work Development. We have a purchase agreement for the property, they are willing to sell. They wouldn't have.
Right, I mean, this is more general in regard to the total future map use, and I think it plays in here because seeing what you've done and how you're moving forward, your future map use, future land use map with regard to the comprehensive plan shows virtually all of the property within the city limits. Ours is about right.
Yeah. I guess, Bruce, what I want to know is, where it says for medium density, low density, then why is it being, have it called out for us to rezone it to R2?
Right, R2 allows for smaller lots than R1 does.
Okay,
How
but in
small?
other words, more houses.
How small?
Yeah, you have to houses,
medium density.
but we're not building townhomes.
Okay.
That's what's permitted right now in the comprehensive plan. You could have that type of density with townhomes in there. We don't want to do that. We want to create a single family.
What type of homes are we talking? Farmers administration?
No, but why is that a problem? If it was, that's not what we do. But I think that's kind of irrelevant.
Well, I think we just need to understand what is going to come, right? What that area is going to.
Well, the type of homes that can afford to pay $75,000 for a lot.
And how big do you plan the lots to be?
I think the smallest width is 65.
I believe 65 to 70. And maybe we should backtrack a little bit to discuss the comprehensive plan and how the city does their land use, because that seemed like your guys' more concerned than this property. This property will probably be covered more on the rezoning.
I mean, the properties are concerned because it's.
No, I know. I'm just trying to say we still have one more step to go before the commission for the rezoning. That's probably where we'll talk about the concept.
That's the detail.
Exactly. But going back to your comprehensive plan, I guess I would rather let the city elaborate on how they set up the comprehensive plan and planning neighborhoods and cities. And
Possibly
why.
a second bridge.
Right, the traffic, how you're gonna handle traffic.
Yeah, I mean, the comprehensive plan, I mean, it was a big picture plan. It does not mean that just because you're shown, that there's land use shown on your property, the city's not does not have a history of involuntarily annexing property if the property owners are not in favor of it. Both of the annexations tonight, the property owner voluntarily said, we want to be in the city. Okay. So, and the comprehensive plan would pull together a steering committee that's recommended by the city council and city officials. And so there's a big steering committee that is involved. It goes before the P&Z. There's public meetings. It was presented at Four Seasons Festival. There was a lot of public input on the comprehensive plan as it was put together. And it evaluates everything from land use to major street extensions to where should parks be in the future. I mean, so we're looking within the 2 miles growth area of the city. Does not necessarily mean that the city's going to grow that fast, immediately, but we're looking again down the road and how all those pieces would come together, so that when individual projects come together, come in front of the city, they know how to evaluate them. And sometimes it does take a comprehensive plan amendment to make some minor tweaks to it. If it's a major comprehensive plan amendment, then we might need to look at a bigger picture. But something going in just one discrete area, going from medium density to a low density, didn't have a lot of ramifications on the surrounding area. So, because again, it was going less dense.
Yeah, I mean, as it sits now, even if it's medium density, the rezoning that we're asking for could still be done within that comprehensive plan designation, because you're not exceeding the,
Well, you're less, the comprehensive plan, and I don't have the number, I can look them up, but I believe the density on low density is 1 dwelling unit to 4 dwelling units per acre, and you're in that range, where medium density is like 4 to 8. So in other words, it's cutting, just in rough terms, half the number of homes right off the bat. I mean, so it's more in keeping with a low density. And that way, if your concept should change, you're still, the zoning's in place. And they couldn't put townhomes there unless they came back in front of the P&Z to change it back again.
Yes, sir.
I'm not speaking for anybody else here, but what I would prefer not to see there is what's happening down our road towards the Big Creek, where you've got little bitty lots and the houses are just, there's practically no grass between them. So, for what it's worth.
well, that's why we selected the R2 instead of going through like a PUD style rezoning. That's how you get those small distances in between the homes. Because the existing zoning classification really does a pretty good job of maintaining green space with their side yard setbacks and all that. It seemed to fit pretty well with what our vision was for the single family lots. So.
Can you turn that a little more?
Yeah.
So-
Well, this is just showing a generic
Oh,
map.
okay, all right.
The concept, I'll
She
flip
was
it
looking at
over.
the fact.
Yeah, I'll put that over in a second, guys. I was just, or do you guys want to flip it over now?
There's internal streets.
That's fine if you want to.
I mean, you guys seen the locations pretty much. And again, this is a preliminary concept, so you can't hold us to it just because we're still looking at the topographic survey and how the site can actually be, I guess, served with
So will
streets,
Wolf
utilities.
Creek then be, will Wolf Creek Drive be extended?
Which one?
Will
is
there be
Wolf
like a
Creek?
bridge coming?
All three of them.
Wolf Creek, this
West Creek
street,
Drive.
public street will be extended. This we're just leaving because it's already left short, I guess, of the property.
No other entry or exit off of that.
Off
So
of,
the street you're extending is to go to Hunt Drive?
I mean, everybody's
This
gonna come
is
through
an
Wolf
access
Creek
point.
Drive and get out of there.
Right.
there's an access point here.
Can we go one at a time so we can actually get some answers and move ahead, so we can have a discussion, or just wanna?
Maybe it would help if you just kind of present your concept plan, explain it first, and then you
Yep,
can.
okay, so yes.
We also need to see, because
Sorry.
you're gonna be looking to come back with this.
Yes,
We have some
preliminary
comments
plat and
about
everything
where-
else will come back. And I apologize, I'm trying to accommodate both.
Maybe you can make a comment and show everybody, turn it, so
Yep.
everybody could see.
So, again, I kind of went over the overview of the site. It consists of 33 acres located at the southwest corner of Polk Drive and 3rd Street. Ultimately, what we're concepting of is 86 single-family lots. As Bruce had mentioned, they range from 65-foot wide to 70-foot wide lots. Ultimately, there's 2 stub streets from Wolf Creek's townhome development. Both the right-of-way is actually platted to that south boundary line. However, this one, there's an existing draw that was left there just for drainage purposes. I don't know how the development was left off, but the pavement was left short. We've elected not to extend that if it's not necessary. This one was extended closer to the property line, so that will be extended through the site. The other connection points to the site,
That should have drive.
what's that? It would be
Wolf Creek. Wolf Creek Drive.
Would that be the western, I guess?
Are you talking about
north
West
south?
Trace Drive?
West Trace is the
West-
west one.
west.
Chinook Drive is actually a private
Chinook
street
Way.
in it, or Chinook Way. It's a private street, so that's not gonna be extended.
Oh, that's
It never was intended, yeah.
okay, yep. So this is Trace.
West Trace,
West Trace will not be extended, and this is
Wolf Creek Drive.
Wolf Quick Drive will be extended. And the other access points to the development will be off Third Street and also a Hug Avenue, if you guys can see that. I guess the gray is basically kind of delineating the proposed pavement.
And these are all public streets, they're not private streets like we have. Wolf Creek.
I think it's a mix in Wolf Creek, correct?
Yep.
Utilities will actually come from Wolf Creek, but they're extended in the right of way. It's already there. There was some comments concerning extending a larger water main through the site. We're going to work with Snyder Associates on how to do that to basically loop the city system. Other than that, I guess I would happy to answer any questions that you guys have or any more that you want to present. I'd try to answer.
Did you say everything on Wolf Creek is a private drive, everything?
No, it's a mix of private and public.
But the one clear down in the corner,
This one's actually a public street.
the
West
one you're not
Trace.
extending
The one we're not extending.
is a
Correct.
public street.
Correct.
And again, why?
I guess that was more of a, just discussing it back and forth with staff on where it's left short. There's actually an existing drainage way here that we didn't really want to disturb. And then just due to it was left short, I believe, 100 feet.
Mhm. Yeah, at the time Wolf Creek Townhomes was developed, they didn't pave it to the north property line. And there is so that extending it further, you'd have to have a pretty significant culvert, and there would be a loss of quite a few trees. And we looked at it from a traffic standpoint, and with the one connection off of Wolf Creek Drive, and then the two other connections, there didn't need to be, from a traffic standpoint, I guess a real imperative reason that they make that connection and lose those trees and build that culvert. I mean, it's something you can require. It's just from a traffic standpoint, we felt there was enough connectivity with it being a townhome to single family to at least have that one.
I don't like it.
Yeah, that is the craw in my side as well. Every time we've looked at we have talked about extending the exemption for not having a cul-de-sac vault there, knowing that it was going to be, on a temporary basis, knowing that it was going to be extended further north. And that was really the logic behind it. Also, our comprehensive plan talks pretty specifically about trying to encourage communication and networking between neighborhoods and extending streets like this, which is why it was built that way to start. Generally, as these develop, the parcel that develops first, determines where those connections will be, and then the parcel that develops second is, it's their responsibility to connect into those extensions. Also, as you look at our comprehensive plan, that from a traffic flow and continuity perspective, it did show that in there. I think there's a lot of reasons to extend it. The only reason I can see not to extend it is, potentially some additional expense.
Yeah,
and also, I mean, if we don't extend it, then there really needs to be a cul-de-sac vault put on the end of that, and there's to have it come in compliance. Since that is a public street, not a private street.
Who would pay for extending that street?
Well, it would probably fall to this developer. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved when the original Wolf Creek Townhomes project went through before 2003, so I wasn't involved with what the discussion was or why they left it short. But there was a determination made at that point in time. And my understanding was that they wanted it to connect because they envisioned this area to be another extension of townhomes. And so they wanted it to be kind of more of one project as opposed to the single family versus in the town. Which is not to say you can't interconnect them twice, but That was kind of the rationale for not extending it.
I guess to be blunt, so you don't waste your time, I think there's votes up here that wouldn't vote for it if you don't extend.
But we actually, our first concept, that Kathleen saw, we had to extend it. And the reason that we determined that maybe that's not the best thing to do, because you're tearing out a lot of trees, you're messing with floodplain stuff, and it really wasn't necessary from a traffic continuity perspective to do it. I mean, it can be done, I guess, but I think it'd be a shame to take out all those trees and tear all that up for what's not, from a traffic standpoint, a necessary connection.
Another thing I would like to mention is when Wolf Creek was laid out, the skew of that right of way basically limits any, I guess, frontage of street just because it heads to, I guess, our western property line, the western property line. So it might have worked for a townhome lot with lesser depth, but for a single family lot, the depth of any lot off of this would be slightly less than desirable.
Okay, you've been warned. You know how it feels.
Question?
Comprehensive plan. This would be annexed, if it's annexed into Polk City, Wolf Creek is part of Polk City. Is there anything in the comprehensive plan about connecting the park to this area, Wolf Creek, and this area should become residential with some sort of bike path or sidewalk so to get into town without having to walk on the It's the only area of Polk City that's not connected to the city with a sidewalk. Now, when the water park and that issue was voted down several years ago, part of that plan was to extend that trail up to that development should it had it been passed, but it didn't. Is there anything in the comprehensive plan to connect Wolf Creek and this development to the city with the trail or sidewalk?
The trail is still in the comprehensive plan, and there hasn't been a detailed discussion in terms of timing on when that trail would be constructed, but that is in the comprehensive plan. Similar to what it was when
You're gonna have considerable more traffic, construction traffic years, and considerable more residential traffic, commuter traffic in and out of town with no sidewalk. It's not.
You're right. It is the only area that's not connected. There have been different options that did go through. It's been looked at independent of those as well, and it's not only a cost thing, but land seizure for some properties in between here and Wolf Creek. But it is something that I think needs to be addressed, and with more people in that section, it makes the problem greater. So when and how it'll look, I can't tell you, but it is a priority. What else?
Well, all the development between Polk City and the marina, somebody's putting sidewalks in there.
I don't know if that's apples, but I guess it's true.
Sir, could you just give us your name for record?
Tim Cooney, 550 Northern Trace Court.
Thank you.
Rob, I'd like to go on, it's a little off of this, but it is, just go on record. I spent 20 years on Johnston planning. And we started with that a long time ago, trying to get the city to do something about that thing. Mainly, this is along Merle Road, where there weren't any sidewalks. It took them 30 years and one death before they finally did something about it. And there's no sense risking that. It ought to be something council looks at, especially with all the developments going on over there. Would appreciate that if you just bring that to them.
It's been discussed.
Again.
Okay.
Please. Thank you. I agree with Tim very much so.
As long as we're talking about traffic, is Northwest Hub Drive part of this annexation? Is it part of the city? Is it part of the county? I see we've got an access to this development from Hub Drive, it's right across Greg's and ours. Is there any way that could not go in there. We already have the Trace Drive, whatever that was, and Broadway there as access to this area.
Well, just,
So it's not Trace, it's the other.
when the property is voluntary, I mean, when the property owner signed the, petition to voluntary annex, by state code, all annexations go to the center line of the road. So automatically it will be the south half of Hug Drive and the west half of North Third will be in the city.
That particular access is part of Polk City.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have noted that, I think that's a bad place.
Yeah, we haven't looked at site distance or anything, and with Hug Drive being the way it is, we'll need to look at site distance.
So there's an access off of Shell Drive too down on this.
Yeah, Third Street, yeah,
Third Street,
correct.
Right, that's all.
Right.
Yeah, there's a big grade cut down.
Yeah, so this will come down pretty steep.
Yes, ma'am. Could you state your
Robin
name?
Blaylock
Okay,
with
thank you.
910 Chinook Way. How does the tree line up here? I'm sorry, I'm kind of trying to get the viewpoint here, but like there's a tree line, right? By Chinook Way, it ends up with trees between the properties, and then Chinook all the way to
The whole north edge of the townhomes has creeks running through there,
Yeah.
and a bunch of trees. And I guess
Well, that's ultimately what we discussed. Part of the commission would like this extended, so to do that, there would be a gap in there that there's no choice. We'd have to remove those trees and put a culvert in where that drainage way that you guys are discussing. But most of these trees here, we're not looking to disturb any more than what we need to for the design. But we'll always have a connection here, and what commission's telling us is they prefer a connection here also. And this is where you're gonna see a lot of those trees. You probably can't see it on this scale, but I do have an aerial. Yep, it was part of the agenda if you download the agenda, it's part of that staff report.
So then, like you're in the Wolf Creek Association, so when you build over that, and I know lots are okay, so when you build over there and across away from the tree line, the Wolf Creek Drive would go right into that.
You're gonna have to tell me what the street names.
Wolf Creek's the westernly,
Yeah.
north-south,
That's West Street, I think.
or sorry, easterly, sorry.
This is.
So it would create more traffic flow that's gonna spill through there possibly, if they wanted to go through there.
just go out or go out, but it could.
Usually drivers wanna go to the, I guess what you'd say, the collector arterial street. They're not gonna consider the streets through Wolf Creek to be collector arterial, just because they'll have to deal with more intersections as they drive through your neighborhood.
Well,
So-
and that was one of my questions,
Yep.
the traffic flow, how's that gonna work? And, I guess unless they're doing construction on one of these roads or repaving,
Yep.
you might have some more.
But ultimately, it's gonna provide an access for you to utilize to leaving Creek to go through this neighborhood. So it's a back and forth. I mean, if you're headed to Hug Drive, you may not head out to Third Street. You might go through the residential neighborhood. Again, it's all user choice. We can't predict that. Typically, they just don't usually drive through residential lots because you're dealing with stop signs, crosswalks.
Yes,
I did have one more comment. The traffic on Hug Drive has increased dramatically in the last years. And now with the developments at TCI and the other one there, MJR, whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be increased that much more. So we need to take a look at that exit there. It's just not going to be the greatest.
This access point is not locked down yet until, like Kathleen has said, we still need to look at site distances. It needs to be a safe intersection. But ultimately, if we continue with what commission's recommendations are about extending the street, it needs to go to HUG. It doesn't just get extended into the development and dead ends. It needs to go through. But the actual specific location may shift some. And that's probably going to be more to do with the topography of the profile of that street, just finding a safe location that you can see if there's stopping site issues, which I'm assuming you guys have maybe had issues in the past looking out your driveways, and that's what you're concerned about traffic.
It's right at a corner and there's a bridge there.
Exactly.
Try to take the 13 kid to off the trail.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a question, Eric Sharp, 12500 West Drive, Georgia. The entire western border of the property question here. The question I would have for the developer is, if you go back and have to sort of think the extension of the western road to the north, how does that impact your zoning at all?
No, not the zoning, it doesn't impact that at all. It's gonna impact the design and layout of the lots, for sure.
Because we went ahead and we signed the zoning petition. Pleased to see one in between low density, as you can imagine. Also, would certainly prefer to see it as R1 with lighter lot, understand economics and all those things. Certainly wouldn't want to see it get in higher density as a result of you having to punch that.
Okay, thank you.
Only other comment is, do you envision the speed limit changing on Hub Drive as these developments come into play?
Sure.
It's 30, I think it's 35 today. I've been almost T-boned several times going out of my driveway, so.
I don't know off the top of my head. I do think it's important to note that HUG will not go through forever as the development progresses. So I think that while you are adding people in the area, so you're adding traffic on that front, you're also decreasing the ability for them to go straight through as HUG currently sits. So I don't know.
That alleviates it to some. Probably still on that.
Ma'am, you had a question too.
Charlotte Loader, 913 West Trace. As many of you already know who I spoke there. First of all, I was glad to hear that it was not going to be multi-dwelling or townhomes. But I'm going to register my thoughts on West Trace going through. I don't want it to go through. It affects my property, my house. Means I'm going to lose the trees on my north side, and I'm going to have a boatload of more traffic, which right now, obviously, I don't have any. So those are my 2 cents, and nothing bad about anybody up there, because I know you will make the right decision, or at least I hope so. But that's my thoughts.
Thank you.
I have a comment on that. Elaine Shipley, 910 Wolf Creek Drive. One of the attractions or draws to that area is the fact that it is timberland. And you're proposing to have 3 entrances into the area anyway. To have to put that number 4th one in and take down all the trees, I mean, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, just as far as the attraction of those particular lots.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the outlaw?
Outlet C will probably be, well, not probably, it's going to be a stormwater management facilities, but most likely it'll be a normal wet basin pump. That's where during rainfall events, that's where temporary water is stored, like in the top 3 feet, but then you also usually typically make them 12 feet deep, so they don't become just algae. This outlet Y, if you see this boulder line, that's actually the floodplain, and we just don't want to necessarily get into that and start delineating or disturbing that, just because I believe somebody might have stated they thought there was marshes out there. Well, we don't know that for sure, but if there is, they're typically in wetlands, and that's the reason we try to attempt to stay out of them all possible. But again, in that wetland, or sorry, that floodplain actually extends up here. To push it one more time on West Trace, it would actually extend through that right of way, or currently extends through that right of way.
I will second Charlotte's comments on, and yours as well, on timber that's there, and it's very attractive now. I would hate to see it up the road punched.
Josh, I have a question on sidewalks. Are there sidewalks within the development?
Yeah, they'll be typical standard streets is the intent. I guess, do you guys do 4 foot or 5 foot?
City does 4 foot on both sides of the street. There
There's
will be on the collectors, on Hug and on Third.
Yeah, okay. We'll have to look
They're
at
not, they're not shown at this level of detail, on any of them, but that is a requirement.
in Hug and Third, just keep in mind that we'll have to be creative to try to keep that platform just due to the relief of the site. Because Hug and Third at the, I guess what I'd state, the northeast corner of the development will sit substantially higher than probably the rest of the development. So there'll probably be a sidewalk that sits up a little bit, or at least a platform for that sidewalk.
I like to respond to Charlotte.
It'll be the first time.
Be kind. Well, if you know me, you know that I always listen to residents. But
Yes, you do.
just make that
And I'll vouch for it.
okay.
All right, any other comments? We've kind of mixed up 2 agenda items here, so I think let's step back and look at item 12, which is the comprehensive plan amendment.
And also, I guess, just one, getting back to the concept, finalizing that tonight is not on our agenda.
Exactly.
But I did want to express my concern so that it, so you knew where I was coming from before it happened. But what we're talking about there doesn't impact, whether we should be updating the comprehensive plan or
the zoning. Exactly. Because
I would like to request, as we start to on the preliminary plat, I kind of want a consensus on that West Trace, what direction. I'm kind of getting mixed feelings.
Well, I changed my mind.
Okay. I just kind of need, I'll discuss it with staff, but as we continue with the preliminary plat, we just need to know, do we leave it as shown or look at paving that through?
And I can't get to a yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, we need to put a cul-de-sac bulb on it to make it compliant with the city code. And we can't be allowing exceptions in one spot of the city without making those same exceptions in other spots of the city. And so we need to do one or the other.
Okay.
Or make it a private street. Another option.
Just that half block.
Yeah, if the townhome association would like to take on maintenance long-term for that street, I'm sure the city would probably let them do that.
Well, that's seriously not a bad thing to discuss.
Not a bad thing to discuss.
Amongst the Wolf Creek residents.
You'd have to put a cul-de-sac there to turn fire trucks on.
The private street to the east doesn't have one.
Yeah, but is it short enough that we wouldn't have to put a cul-de-sac?
Yeah, it's we could visit with Public Works and the fire department because it is so short. The fire trucks could stay on the public street because Northern Terrace Drive is also public. So,
right. So we wouldn't
get a recommendation.
Maybe necessarily have to put a cul-de-sac there for fire access, right?
Yeah, we could, like I said, we could visit with the fire chief and Public Works to get their thoughts on the need for a cul-de-sac street.
It doesn't appear to be much longer than.
It's
just a few feet longer than the street to the west.
It's been that way
So Charlotte's address would change probably.
Yeah, we don't need to get in the weeds on it right now. I guess just please convey what your thoughts are. Yeah, convey your thoughts to staff, and then they can relay it to us, and we'll look at multiple scenarios.
Fair enough. Okay,
If we're ready for a motion,
yes, let's go back to item 12. I'm ready for a motion.
I would make a motion that we recommend to council approval of comprehensive plan amendment, revision of the future land use plan of Miller property from medium density residential to low density residential, subject to city engineer's comments dated June 6, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? Not?
Triplett? Olfest?
Yes?
Bowersox?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Sire?
Yes.
Pinkins?
Yes.
Okay, last item would be the rezoning from A1 to R2, the same parcel. Motion on that.
I'd make a motion that we recommend to council approval for rezoning of the Miller property from A1 to R2, subject to engineer's comments dated June 6, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion further?
Triplett?
Yes.
Olfest?
Yes.
Bowersox?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Sire?
Yes.
Pinkins?
Yes.
Just because he gets in the Des Moines Register now, he gets to make all the motions.
Famous.
Speed man.
All right. Thank you for all your input, everybody. Item 14, staff report.
I just have one item for those of you that don't know. This will be Becky's last meeting. She resigned and is taking another position. The last day here will be July 1st. So we'll miss her good work. Yeah.
Congratulations, and we will miss you.
Thank you.
You've done a great job.
Thank you. I'll miss you guys.
Come back anytime.
I will. Thank you.
The only thing I would add that might be relevant, keep July 11th on your calendar. That'll be the next step. Stop me where I divulge more than I should, but so the last council meeting, we narrowed down the candidates for city manager, and the 11th will be our next step. Still finalizing, I think.
Yeah, we're still working on the final schedule of how that's going to that day will lay out.
But obviously, want your guys' input as much as can be. So I think it's a Thursday.
All right.
Okay.
And for those of you, I mean, I appreciate the feedback for those that are interested in providing more at the steps that we're in. If you're just opposed to change, I can't help with that. But if you're interested in being a part of the change, then that's a different story.
Sounds like a threat almost.
It's not a threat, it's a statement. I mean, it's change is going to happen.
More communication, there'd be less questions and
Okay, and I think they answered that. I mean, and again, nothing's happened without your involvement. I mean, this isn't even phase one, and you're informed, right? So have you missed anything?
I think communication would be good. He indicated that he met with neighbors, not really looking at that.
No, I think it
think
is.
More communication, there'd be less questions.
Okay, you have different definitions
It's
of
not
neighbors.
required, but you heard, I think.
Okay, commission report. Anything from anybody? Okay. If not, we need a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
So fast, that's
It's like breaking up a no-hitter.
Well played.
Last at bat, she punts.
Actually, that was a part. I know.